Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I will give my presentation. Our paper with Mrs. Dwi Prasetyani, we titled The Effect of Climate Change Damage on Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries in Asean Countries. First, we'll talk about abstract. The contribution of agriculture, forestry, and fisheries is also relatively varied. Geographical condition, policy orientation of its government, structure of production input, including human resource competence and technology, are thought to determine the adverse effect of climate change on the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector. This study focused on the impact of climate change on the agriculture, fisheries, and forestry sector in the Asean region. Countries in the Asean region have a significant potential for the impact of climate change, disruption, and disasters such as El Nino, La Nina, earthquake, tsunamis, volcanic eruption, flood, tropical storm, landslide, and carbon dioxide emission. The ASEAN Secretariat records a progressive increase in carbon dioxide emission level of around 61% from 2014 to 2025. More than 90% of transport has from the expansion of large-scale commercial plantation, accumulation of plastic waste, and household waste that cannot be properly recycled. Climate change effect many countries in different ways. In Asian countries explained by World Bank, that the climate change that occur tend to vary. Large impact occur in the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector. Geographical condition, policy orientation of each government, production input structure including human resource competence and technology, are thought to determine the adverse effect of climate change on agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sector. This study focused on the study on the impact of climate change on agriculture, forestry, and forestry sector in the Asian region. The analysis framework entered to Asean Vision 2020 and Asean Vision 2025. Beside depending analysis of several climate change impact control instruments such as water-based, agriculture insurance, agri-environment climate scheme, and environmental service will also be reviewed. The findings of this study indicate that the detrimental effect of some climate change indicators on agriculture GDP, forestry, and fisheries are proven. In priority, there are several policy instruments of environmental sustainability that can be applied at both the country level and ASEAN level, namely the new water-based principle, recently successfully implemented in several developing countries, where people who damage the environment must bear the cost of such. Besides, a payment program for environmental service can be done in ASEAN countries based on the finding that program for environmental service was successfully implemented in significant result with a sample of 100,000 forest right holders in Vietnam. Another instrument is agricultural insurance in Malaysia found that agricultural insurance has the potential as an agricultural risk management strategy due to climate change. Okay, next. Our research method in this paper with our scope is Asian countries. with our method is literature review, and the contribution of this study to the existence of literature is realized, in several ways. The first contribution was an analysis of the impact of climate change on agriculture, fisheries, and forestry sector in Asean countries. And the second is the analysis of various climate change impact control instruments in the Asean region. Okay, and this is our result and discussion. Several empirical studies have examined that the impact of climate change on agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. For example, the case in Brazil has been projected until 2050. There is significant decrease in agricultural production as a result of climate change. Climate change is also impacting the decline of timber supply and the increase in forest fires in Canada. And the recent models project a decrease in fish biomass and an increase in fish due to the climate change. Another research explained that agricultural insurance is one tool that helps agricultural producers in developing countries to switch from subsistence agriculture to sustainable agriculture. Indeed, agricultural insurance have many risks in the agricultural food value chain, can stabilize farm incomes and include investment in agriculture. Therefore, agricultural insurance is an appropriate tool to mitigate the impact of climate change. Agricultural insurance framework need to be proposed by policymakers and environmental. However, there are several challenges of agricultural insurance in developing countries. Malaysia, for example, namely lack of experience from international practice, limited product, lack of necessary data, limited financial capacity, and high administrative operational costs. Research by Jorgensen et al. Found that in general, farmers with low soil quality who had experienced crop damage in the past were more likely to purchase agricultural insurance. On the other hand, farmers with good soil quality and have never experienced loss to climate feel they can adapt to climate change without agricultural insurance, so they are less willing to buy agricultural insurance. Regarding agri-environment climate change, Torres explained that farmer environmental belief and perception are a key tool for understanding the concept of sustainability in relation to their preference. Environmental opinion reviewed that using the new ecological paradigm scale made it possible to identify the ecocentric and anthropocentric attitude of farmers. Regarding payment for environmental service, research in Nepal showed that the average willingness to farmer to pay for irrigation water, the distance of rice field from the water source, welfare status, and gender have a major influence on individuals. Another finding suggests that payment environmental service programs are likely to have impact on livelihood. I'll respond to another research study reported positive change to the program. Respondents also highlight that payment and clarity of boundaries were the main factor underlying this substantial impact. Regarding polluter pay still don't explain that the historical polluter pays principle. A modification of the original polluter pays principle used to state that developed countries should pay most of the cost for climate policy, argues that the cost of recovering past pollution should be allocated according to pollution they pass. Lopi concludes by suggesting that this variation of polluter-based regime may be desirable in an environmental characterized by widespread poverty, high interest rate, judicial delays, and uncertainty in jurisdiction. So this is our policy instrument of environmental sustainability. First, this is polluter-based principle. Country in Europe apply this principle a lot, where the person or company that is in the environment may pay a gentle amount of money to the designated state authority body. This policy is effectively used to prevent and reduce pollution. And number two is agriculture insurance. This policy is adaptation and risk mitigation in the agriculture sector proved effective as one the risk reduction strategies in agrarian countries in ASEAN began to implement this strategy and successful. And number two is payment for environmental service. This payment for environmental service implementation in often used in forestry sector to pay for environmental service in the forestry sector. Forests with many functions and environmental benefits require to be saved properly and appropriately so that their function and benefit are maintained well. Payment for environmental service was successfully implemented in countries with a considerable area of forest coverage. And policy recommendation in this paper is climate change affect the agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and forestry sector, of Asian countries in the short time and is expected to have no long-term effect. The polluter pay principle can be developed and applied consistently and continuously to all ASEAN countries. The polluter pay principle is proven to be effective for addressing environmental damage. At the country level in ASEAN region, agriculture insurance policy has been successfully deployed in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. This strategy is effective for adaptation and risk mitigation in the agriculture sector to climate change. It can be developed in the So this is my presentation. Thank you for attention and see you.